What's up, everyone? So I've decided to produce a series of videos which I'll call the Path of Masters. The intent of the videos is to chronicle the work of some really exceptional teachers, coaches, advisors, counselors, instructors. At the beginning of the year, I took on the crazy task of tackling my masters in counseling and psychotherapy. So it hasn't been easy. A few months into it, I was just ready to pull the pin because obviously I had a mountain to climb, right? But, I don't regret the decision of studying because what that's allowed me to do is to really add value to my profession, not only as an actor, but as a creative consultant. So I was being called more and more into these very important organizations as a consultant. And so I didn't want to just come in and speak as an artist only. I wanted to really go beyond myself and add value to these companies and also to add value to myself. And that's definitely what's happened so far. Like I've added quite a lot of substantial weight to the work that I do because, it's not just coming from a place of, maybe I can just say this and say that, but it's based off something really sound, very sound. So definitely don't regret the decision. And also I was coming across some really thorough mentors in my own journey, in my own professional journey. So I just wanted to really find out what does it take to give wise counsel? What does it mean to actually be detailed with the advice that you give someone or an institution that really brings out the best in them and adds value to them and adds value to yourself as the consultant. So that was the key impetus to take this project on. So this first conversation I'll be having is with a voice coach. I believe anyone who has the gift of speech or anyone who's still blessed with the ability to actually speak, you grab a pen, grab a paper, take some notes. We take it for granted. We just wake up and start talking. We take it for granted what that actually means. And this conversation I'm having with Andrei Schiller, the founder of Orator Voice Coaching, is it's just one that I'm really into. So to do his credentials justice, I'll read off his website. Andrei holds a master's in voice studies from the Royal Central School of Speech and Drama. With over 8 years as a voice professional, Andrei has coached clients ranging from corporate leaders, actors, Tedx speakers, instructors, and athletes. I think I've already said athletes, but athletes. As a member of the Rubin Hurricane Carter organization, Innocence International, that work on behalf of wrongfully convicted prisoners, he founded the Soul 3 company to raise awareness for wrongfully convicted David McCallum III. In 2014, David was exonerated after spending 29 years in prison, and Andrei continued the company to coach others to find a strong voice for the silenced and for themselves. So I love the brother, man. When he was still living here in Australia, when he was still living in Melbourne, he used to run the Actors Bushido, which he founded as well. And so what he'd do at the Actors Bushido is he'd gather a group of actors and he'd bring in these unique martial arts principles into his actor training. And it was just one of the most fascinating processes I've been part of. So without further ado, let's jump into the conversation. And also I apologize for the quality of the videos. Obviously, we were stuck in quarantine. I couldn't really access my equipment, so there's a massive contrast. But I promise you, the next one we do, the quality will be up to scratch. So let's jump in.
Question is, it's kind of like saying, what is the catalyst for someone's emotional pattern? Did I just break up there?
No, I can hear you clearly, man. You're good.
Cool.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's asking, what are the catalysts for your emotional patterns? And is it the actual patterns that you're creating in the brain? Or is it the fact that if you hold your body in a certain state, which triggers certain autonomic nervous systems to trigger, does that then push your thoughts into a different realm. So for instance, you probably would have learned in school, like the sympathetic nervous system is the one responsible for your fight and flight response. That releases cortisol and all kinds of other hormones, but it's also not great for regulating emotion. Well, I was going to say, I mean, when it comes to the voice, so here's a really interesting thing, right? So Jean-Paul Sartre, the philosopher, said that man is condemned to be free. Really, really interesting maxim if you think about it, because we don't choose what we were born into. We don't choose what color our skin is and what color our eyes are, and we don't choose any of this. We're born with certain limitations, and that's why we're condemned. But we can choose what to do with those limitations and what we were born and what we've got. So when it comes to things like the voice, your voice is a pattern of your society, so that your voice is restricted to the way you were brought up, because you have an accent that you've imitated and learnt throughout your whole childhood, and it's become part of you. It's very, very, very difficult to really change to a different accent, and do it really well, because actors take a long time to learn these different things.
Sure.
But the point is that the voice is individual to you, and it also isn't. And so then you have to understand, well, how does exactly what you're talking about before? How does the external fit in with what you think your voice is, and how you manage it? So that's really another big question. Like, where is the you in your voice? In fact, is there even one?
Yeah.
If it's an accent. So these are big questions. These are big questions that we can come back to later. But it's struggling to know which one to choose.
Yeah. But okay. So let me just bring it back to a little bit of the similarities, if there are any, with this cognitive therapy as well as like vocal therapy. So for example, your first session with a client, how does that sort of look like?
Well, it actually does begin with what is going on in your external life.
Yeah.
Because you're spot on, mate. Your external life, whether you like it or not, has an effect on your body. Even if you tell yourself within your mind that it doesn't. So what I mean by that is that, let's say your body is stressed and you keep trying to tell yourself, I'm not stressed. It doesn't. Things like that don't work. So when you have a client, you kind of want to begin with what they do, what's happening in their life, and then you start to kind of fit the pieces together. And you also have to observe their body. Their body language and their behavior as well, because it gives a very, very strong insight into whatever the reason they came to see a voice coach about, or a voice therapist. For instance, as soon as they open their mouth, I'm listening to the different formats in their voice. They can kind of give a lot away. The quality, there could be like a roughness. That's more of a vocal fry, the vocal fry thing like this. You also want to see if they're using secondary respiratory muscles to talk, and you can usually tell that by when these muscles get engaged. You know one? That's called the sternocleidomastoid muscle. That's a mouthful and deep. These muscles contract, and it lifts your sternum up. Connects to the mastoid process, which is just underneath your jaw here. It helps lift your sternum, so your lungs have more room to breathe. So it's increasing your thoracic capacity, right? So that's not great when you see a person speaking to a friend with these muscles being involved, because it means there's extra effort going on. So these are the first things that you're kind of looking for. You're looking for, and you're listening for, things that sound irregular and unnecessary when it comes to producing voice. So that's why I'm very, very interested to hear a little bit more about, because I don't know too much about it, mate, about feminist therapy and taking into context more of the environmental factors, because it does have a massive, massive impact on the voice. I can't stress how much environmental impact have on your voice. And just so I can give like whoever's listening to this a little bit more context, is that your body, we're very, very primitive in the fact that we still have neural vestiges that we share with lizards. We still have neural vestiges that we share with mammals and with primates. We really are no different. So when you get stressed, you react the exact same way that any other animal or and even in worst cases, a reptile would react. So let me break it down very quickly for you. If you have an environmental factor that is constantly abusive or stressful, let's say you're in an abusive household, your body is in a constant state of fight or flight, which means your body's autonomic nervous system is dominated by what's called the sympathetic nervous system. I'm hoping that if you went to school, you would kind of remember what that is, but your body is split between two, sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system, and they control different parts of the body, and they're responsible for different modes of regulating your emotions and other, just, there's too much to explain, but really they're responsible for, they're responsible for how you regulate your internal life and also your internal emotions and how you think. So if your body's in a constant state of fight or flight, first things first is that your body goes, okay, I need to survive. So I'm going to make sure that my muscles are primed and ready to go. Make sure I've got enough cortisol to fuel that energy. I'm also going to make sure that my vocal folds are split apart. So the vocal folds actually retract. And the reason for that is because the body wants to take in as much oxygen as possible in order to fuel the necessary movement that you may need.
Yeah.
The problem with that is that when your vocal folds are split apart, you may also need to talk at the same time, because in a social context, we're humans, we need to be able to communicate with each other. So your body is wanting to split your vocal folds apart, but then you having the pressure to speak with people, let's say you've got social anxiety as an example, the pressure for you to speak, you're bringing your vocal folds back together. So you've got certain muscles which are pulling your vocal folds apart and certain muscles which are bringing them back together. And that's what creates very, very broadly like a tied voice.
Exactly.
A little bit of tension and stuff. So that's like a very, very simple example about how, okay, if your external environment is triggering your mind and your body to think that you're in danger, so it triggers the fight or flight, it's going to have an impact on your voice.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're in a relaxed environment and it's called neuroception. That's the way the mind and the body evaluate that there's no risk around you. If your body understands that it is completely safe and it's relaxed, then the body switches to the parasympathetic nervous system, which generates growth and allows you to listen properly. That's really, really interesting. I just released an article on listening and vocalizing. I'll go into that a little bit later.
Sure.
But the parasympathetic nervous system is responsible for the ability to actively listen, to actively communicate in a healthy way, and to regulate your emotions in a socially cohesive way as well. So
I'm glad
interesting thing to,
sure,
yeah. So you can't throw away a person's external life, what's going on in their daily routine. Because then you also have to understand, okay, well, how does this person respond to stress? And we all respond very, very differently. The reason why there are so many therapies, if one kind of therapy works, then there wouldn't be a need for so many others. And the reason for that is not everyone heals in the same way. So, for instance, talking about emotions can do more harm than good for a person, which is where. And so what that person would need, they would need to go to more of like a core energetic therapy, which is more body-based and doesn't require any talking. Because talking about emotions can bring up, emotions that create the feeling of threat, because they are.
So it just re-triggers, yeah.
Yeah, so it re-triggers you back into that fight or flight state. And then again, like so you're kind of entering this vicious circle. And the reason for that is that most of it's especially where trauma, like polyvagal theory comes into it a lot, which is more about trauma, but most of this stress and trauma can be found to be stored within the body. So yeah, it's really interesting, man. Like when it comes to vocal coaching, vocal therapy, you don't really just have one way of, treating a person who comes seeking help. You kind of have to feel your way through it a little bit. And by no means am I calling myself a vocal therapist. I'm not certified in I'm not a speech and language therapist. I'm a voice coach. It's a little bit different. So, I mean, I wouldn't, I'm not the one that's going to be giving you advice to change your perspective.
No, for sure. And do that's why I love there's these type of conversations, because all it is just exploring some of the stuff that you've learned. It's there's no sort of like definite I know this, and that's part of like, that's the thing about being a coach as well that I've learned. Being a therapist, being a counselor, is approaching a client from the perspective of, we're both exploring this together. I might have a little bit of more knowledge because I went to study for this, but at the end of the day, you're the expert in whatever issue that you're facing. You're the expert. I'm just there as like a guide, so to speak, and it'd be interesting to see if, that applies to vocal coaching as well. So you don't come with an absolute, I'm the expert, I know what I'm doing, but you like explore together, right? You're, and that I guess works.
Yeah, so I mean, I can run you just like through it very quickly if you like.
Sure.